struggled with all that and we realized, oh my gosh, working with web components with plain JavaScript isn't as easy as I thought. And that's why people create libraries. That's why John Reza created jQuery. That's why everybody created this. Keeps creating new stuff. And that's why Polymer exists. And why are we going to use Polymer? You saw all that's not easy to go ahead and build all this. So there's a lot of value on that. So just as a background on how this project started and everything. So on the same edition of Google I/O, when they talked about web components and said, hey, we're doing this on the browser, take a look into this. They also announced Polymer. And Polymer was just a developer preview. That's what they said. This is a developer preview. And we are now seeing a lot of stuff, and here's how Polymer works. And everybody was looking to those graphs and were, whoa, my gosh, there's a lot of stuff I don't understand, I'm not sure what is this. So everybody was like trying to get their head around this, and Polymer was really in the beginning, just a developer preview. But of course, as a Google project, everybody was like, whoa, web components is really nice. And Polymer, and since Google is implementing this library to test out web components, let's check it out, Polymer. So lots of people started to use Polymer, even if it was a developer preview. They didn't care. They were like, yeah, let's just use this. I don't care. And the API was changing a lot of stuff. And on the next year, other edition of Google I/O, they released some elements collection. So they said, hey, we have this core, we have Polymer, but we are also building collections of elements, core elements, paper elements. On that very same conference, they announced material design. So here's material design. Oh, and here's Polymer's implementation of material design. So on this edition of Google I/O, they announced those element collections. Polymer was in 0.5 version, and still, like, lots of people using it. They were still saying, hey, this is a developer preview, and people keep using that and implementing that and facing performance issues and facing API changes and facing all that. But you could just go ahead on the website and use material design components, so it was pretty appealing at the same time. And like a month ago, they released the 1.0 version of Polymer, which is now ready for production. So what they mean about this is now we have a stable project with a stable API. You can go ahead, use it in production. Here are all the Google projects that are using it, and it's fast. It's not as low as it was. Cool. So that's how Polymer started, and that's the point that we are right now. And on this very same conference, they also announced more collection of elements. So core element was renamed to iron elements. We now have paper elements, Google Web Components, code elements, neon elements, platinum elements, and moleculars. So we have all that now. So what is Polymer in the end? What is all this structure that we have right now, all those new words that we need to learn? So we have the browser APIs. So this is web components, right? This is custom elements, HTML template, shadow DOM, and HTML imports. Those are the browser APIs. This is the base of everything. But in order for those to work in other browsers than Chrome, you need some polyfills. And this is what Web Components JS is. Just polyfills. You want this to work on Safari, which doesn't implement custom elements, HTML imports, and all that. Here's what you need to use on those browsers. Import this JavaScript file, and things are going to work. Cool. This is an optional layer. Everything we did was not using Web Components JS. So if you try to run those files and Firefox or Safari, they're not going to work. So this is an optional layer because if you're just experimenting like we are, we don't need this. And it's optional because one day this is not going to be useful anymore. All the browsers are going to support web components and this is going to be dropped. So Polymer comes down to this. This is the Polymer layer. So this is like sugar, this is like more stuff and make it easier to access those APIs in a better way. So it's Google's implementation of web components in an easier way. They want some library that you can do all that and make it more protected. And there's a lot of people using Polymer, and the same team that builds Polymer, they also builds a lot of elements using Polymer. So they have a collection of elements called iron. They have a collection of elements called paper, gold, and all those collections that I showed before. So this is the structure that we have nowadays. Have the browser APIs, have a polyfill that is going to disappear in, I don't know how much time. We have the library, core library, and then we have the element collections. So one thing that people always make this mistake is assuming that Polymer is a polyfill for web components. So Polymer is not this thing that you put on your page and now web components works everywhere. The answer for this is web components.js. So we have already seen what polyfill is. It's like this piece of code that we put on our page to make some feature work. So the answer to this is web components.js. So web components.js is the set of polyfills that are built on top of the web component specifications. So if you don't have support for browser, for custom elements, for HTML imports, you just need to import this JavaScript file and it's going to work. And as I said before, once those functionalities are implemented in browsers, this is going to disappear. And right now they are serving two different versions of this polyfill. And there's a reason because of that. So remember when I showed the GitHub project where they are building this time elements and they're using on the website in production? So GitHub is using web components in production. Why are you saying that, like, are they crazy? They need to support all those browsers. Are they using web components.js? Web components.js, the way it's structured, you can get only the polyfills that you want, like, oh, I just want custom elements, I just want HTML imports, I just want each of those. And one of the reasons why the older version of Polymer was so slow is that to create the polyfill for Shadow DOM, it takes a lot of performance to do that. Recreating the Shadow DOM, it's like extremely hard with plain JavaScript. So Polymer 1.0 is not using Shadow DOM. They have this other thing called Shady DOM, which is like a light implementation of Shadow DOM. And they are distributing web components.js in two different files. We have web components lite, which doesn't include Shadow DOM, and web components.js, which includes everything. This project, just as a sake for background for those who already knew Polymer or anything like that, this project was called Platform.js, which in this old graph you can see it was called Platform.js. It was on this GitHub org. It was under Polymer org. And everybody was making this mistake as assuming that uh, Polymer was a polyfill for web components, and then we created this one, web components, which I'm the owner, by the way, and then we moved for here.
Wait, what was that? Which you are the author of, by the way?
I'm the owner of this org and this website as well. So, and then we decided to move because this makes much more sense to be a community project than a project that it's owned by Google.
Okay, so step back just 1 second. You created the Web Components website?
Yeah, and the org.
Show them the website. It's like that thing, like Xena, right? Like nonchalant, like, and I wrote Larry Page's search algorithm with him at Stanford in the late 90s.
Yeah, so this is the website. You can find everything about web components there.
You know what my favorite thing about this website, now that I know you created it?
What?
Scroll to the bottom. Top left, Xena.
Yeah, the way I did that, because if you go to contributors, you're gonna see that like I have I'm much more active than everybody here.
You're awesome, Xena.
Cool. So how can you use this polyfill? So you go to Bower and you can install using Bower. I'm gonna tip into that a little bit more. And then you install that and include this script in your page, and boom. Now we have web components available in other browsers, and we can test that. So we're gonna just open. So this is the element that we just created. This is using web components. If I try to open this on Firefox, this is not gonna work. So I'm just gonna go ahead and, oops.
It's not going to work, you mean the format just gets messed up? Or
It doesn't support web components.
It doesn't support.
Safari does not support. That's what the polyfill, the web component JS will do.
So we have this folder. I'm just gonna install, like I said before, Bower install web components JS, fetching all those files. Cool, I have them on my folder. Have them right here. Here are all the files. And I'm just gonna go ahead. Still not working on Firefox.
you not save?
Guess I saved. Okay, there's one little thing that I need to do with the polyfill. I'm not gonna go into that because we don't need to worry about this. But basically, the polyfill, they create this different object called underline current script, and that's the one that we need to access. If you want to make this bulletproof, we can just document that current script, like we did with the prefix.
Oh yeah, we talked about this.
Yeah, we talked about this. So
Well, with Andrew, we talked about this too.
yeah, with Andrew, cool. Yeah. Yeah, we like there's this. So one thing that we decided to do in order for other people to know how can you build web components using just plain JavaScript, and how can you do it using Polymer and Xstack, which is the other one that I'm going to show. We put together this repo that is like a hello world example with those three, and this is the pattern that you saw, right? We need to do this little thing. This is like the vendor prefix stuff. And we can install Polymer using NPM as well. Polymer, no, Web Components.js using the NPM as well. Blah blah blah. Import it. Cool. So same problem happens with like the same misconceptions happen with like how is Polymer different from Angular? Is it the same thing? Or how is it different from Ember or React? So those frameworks, if you go to their websites, like Ember.js, they are much more ambitious. They try to like help you with your whole application level. They have like controllers, they have models, they have views, they have routing, they have templates as well, they have lots of stuff. So they want to care about your whole application. And this is not the case for Polymer. Same thing with Angular. They try to handle routing, animations, dependency injection. You have all those stuff. It's like a framework for your whole thing. And Polymer just cares about elements. Just a way of creating elements. How you're going to do routing, how you're going to like do all the other stuff that you need to do. You do it by yourself or use a framework, doesn't matter. So web components and Polymer, they just care about those little tags that you're going to put in your page. So now it comes to the question, like, what is the browser support for web components, for Polymer, for all this stuff? Right now, depends on each browser vendor. So Chrome is the gold standard, of course. They are leading the spec. So the guy that came out with this idea, he works for Google, Dimitri. And right now it's supported in every, like all the specs are supported in Chrome. Like custom elements supported since 36. Shadow DOM since 31. HTML imports since 36. Templates since 31.
And this is without a polyfill.
Mm-hmm.
This is just natively in the browser.
Native, like we are using before. So in the past, Chrome was using WebKit. Now they forked WebKit. They have their own engine called Blink, and Opera switched to Blink. So they have the same browser support. Both Chrome and Opera, they have the same browser support. In Mozilla, it's the one that they're causing more tension with Mozilla. And why is that? Mozilla was betting a lot on ES6, so they're trying to push ES6 features on their browser, and which is awesome, by the way. And there's another feature. There's one feature on ES6 called ES6 modules, which you create modules with ES6 and you import them like you do with Node.js. It's a different way of importing, but anyway, it's a totally different topic. And there's some, like, what is the best way to import stuff? Should we use HTML imports or the ES6 modules? And nobody knew the answer. So they were holding off the implementation of web components on Mozilla because they didn't know. Let me see if I can find that article. So Mozilla, like they were describing why we are holding on. Mozilla will not cheapen implementation of HTML imports the way it is. So there was a lot of tension with the other browser vendors, and then they had a in-person meeting in San Francisco, and then they decided a lot of stuff, and now they're working on that.
So Mozilla is going to do web components now?
Yeah. In theory, they are all going to do that. But it's just a matter of like agreeing, like coming up to agreement on, hey, how we're going to do this. There are like certain points where they don't agree. And Safari is like the new IE right now. They are really slow, and they're saying that they're gonna not having an auto update, so it's just crazy, Like everyone is going to the same direction, which is like small cycles of release and releasing from 1 to 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month. Even IE is doing that right now. But Safari, they're like, yeah, we're gonna do new releases of Safari with new releases of OS X, which doesn't make any sense at all.
Who makes Safari?
Apple. Which is the closest, like, they close everything. They don't let any information out. And it's really a pain because they don't care about
That's an
stuff.
interesting comment, that they're the new IE.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've never heard anybody phrase it quite like that. But it makes sense now that you say it, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
It's not a good reputation.
Yeah. And then we have so there's some hope because they put this. So what I say about being transparent instead of being closed is like they have even like Internet Explorer, they put together this website where you can just search for some spec like custom elements. At least they say it's under consideration. So it's better than nothing. So ideally, in the end, we're gonna have support for all that. If you want to track the support for web components, you can just you can either go to Are We Componentized Yet, or go to webcomponents.org. That we maintain this list with the browser support.
Is that linked so that when it changes on that other website, it changes on yours?
No, but like I update this, so whenever there's a change, we're like the other guys from Google, like, they will let me know, or the other browser vendors, and we just go update.
Just trying to save you some work.
Yeah. Okay. So how can we
should we